Here's an interesting one for you guys. My Patreon subscriber David James Venter has requested for me to do a movie review for a movie called The Good Neighbour. Now I had heard of it, I'd seen the trailer for it a few years ago starring James Caan, but I decided not to watch it for some reason. I just didn't have time and I didn't go back to it. But with my movie review for Disturbia last month, David James Venter had the idea for me to visit this one and do a movie review for it. So this is an interesting one, so here we go. The Good Neighbour is a 2016 horror movie directed by Kaja Farahani, and it stars James Caan, Logan Miller and Keir Gilchrist. These two kids are doing a prank on their neighbour, played by James Caan, and it's like a social experiment that they're doing. It's like a half found footage movie, half movie, so it's got a movie quality to it, and it's got movie cinematography in it, but it's got maybe 70% of found footage in it as well. So it is a found footage movie, but it's got a movie quality to it as well. So if you don't like found footage movies, you might not like this, but if you don't mind them, then it's got a bit of both in it. The social experiment involves then trying to scare James Caan into thinking that there's a ghost haunting his house. The reason that they're using him is because he's a drunk, he's an alcoholic, he's a wife beater, he's a dog killer. He's just basically one of those neighbours that you just don't want to associate yourself with. So they chose him. He's local, he's across the road, and what they do is they installed all the camera equipment into his house when he was out, and then they're going to surveillance him and record his activity when they're doing their paranormal activity on him. Straight from the off, we see a backstory as well. So it's got three timelines in this. We've got a timeline with James Caan before everything happened. We've got the modern day timeline with what's happening at the moment. And then we've got a future timeline with the results of what happened there, and that's involved in court. And what I like about this is they mention the defendant this, the defendant that, but we don't see the defendant, so we don't know who's at fault and what's happened. So it's good that we've got that future because we don't know what happens. I know that in some movies we see the future, so we already know what's happened and we just see a lead up to what happened, whereas in this one it's similar, but we just don't know the outcome. Sometimes though with the three timelines it does get a little bit confusing and muddled. There was a scene in particular with the modern day timeline. Somebody goes to James Caan's door, an older lady, and she chaps the door and that's it. But then it almost cuts, not immediately after, but after that, a couple of minutes, it cuts to him in his house with another woman in his house, an older lady, and that was one of the first cuts to that point in time, and I thought that was these days, and I got a little bit confused because then it cut again to him when that lady wasn't there, so that got confusing. But after the second one and the third one, I obviously knew what was happening. Getting into this, I thought it was a horror movie, or at least thought it was horror elements to it, but when you watched it, there wasn't that many horror elements to it. It was nothing like the Blair Witch Project. There was nothing really supernatural happening. It was just a social experimenting on somebody that they knew but didn't know everything about. There was a few intense moments, especially near the end of the movie, but during the film there's a policeman who comes to James Caan's house every now and again, and anytime he comes and goes into the house, you're wondering what's going to happen because we don't know what kind of person that this man is until the very end of the film. I'm not going to spoil anything because I think this movie is worth a watch, but when it gets to the ending, it felt anticlimactic at first. When we see the story unfolding, we see why things are happening, and there was a twist. I felt it was a twist anyway, but when we get to the ending, it felt anticlimactic at first, but then when it explained that anticlimactic ending, I'm thinking, oh, alright, okay. And it just goes to show, without spoiling anything, that people are judging people from what they see. Even me, I was doing the exact same thing as certain people in this film, and when the story unfolded, not only did some people feel ashamed in the movie, I felt ashamed as well because I misjudged somebody, and even though it's not real, but I misjudged somebody, and I think I got something out of the film. It wasn't a masterpiece. It was a good movie. It was a slow burner, but when we got to that end, it was an educational piece of filmmaking, and it is hard to explain, and that's why I don't want to spoil anything. I think you should watch it. As for the acting in the film, it was really good. I saw the trailer for it, and they were saying that James Caan was incredible in this. Unfortunately, James Caan wasn't in it enough for me to judge if he was good or not. His backstory scenes were probably better than the current story that he was in. James Caan was good, but he wasn't Oscar worthy or anything like that. He was just good. The two characters that I did love were the two main characters, Logan Miller and Keir Gilchrist. Anything that I've saw those two boys in, they've been great so far. Keir Gilchrist was in Tales of Halloween. He was in one of the episodes in Tales of Halloween, and he was also in It Follows, one of the best horror movies of the last 20 years. So when I saw that his name was attached to this, I was already interested. And then Logan Miller, he was in The Walking Dead, and he was also in a recent movie that I watched, Escape Room. I didn't know he was in Escape Room the first time I saw the trailer for The Good Neighbour, but I watched Escape Room a few months ago, and obviously I recognise him now. So the two leads are great in this film, and that's why I think it's more than a found footage movie, because you've got good actors. It's not like unknown actors that's in this movie. You've got three well-known actors in it, and I think the acting in this made it better. There was some slow moments in the film, as you would expect for a found footage movie, but the slow moments had payoffs, especially the ending. If I had to compare it to a movie, although David James Venter, my Patreon subscriber, recommended this movie because of Disturbia, although it's kind of similar to Disturbia, I would say it's more along the lines of Don't Breathe, because these people are getting into a house thinking something about someone, but not knowing their backstory, and because they don't know their backstory, there's huge consequences. Have you seen The Good Neighbour, guys? As always, leave your comments down below, and if you have, let me know what you thought of it, and let me know what you thought of the ending of the film. Again, I can't really mention anything just in case people want to watch this spoiler free, but leave your comments down below and let me know what you got out of the ending. So thanks to David James Venter once again for recommending this movie for me to watch. David's on the $10 tier on my Patreon page. If you want to ask me to review any horror movie, as long as it's not pornographic and as long as I haven't reviewed it within the last year, then if you sign up to the $10 or above tier on my Patreon, you can request one movie every month for me to review. Anyway guys, thanks a lot for watching again. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.